What is up, guys? Your boy Kagi, back at it again with a new video. And in this video, I bring you Lauren, an interview with Lauren, executive producer of Ember Sword. Lauren is an industry professional with many years. I don't have his, his background completely. So I'm going to let Lauren kind of, introduce himself because it's very important to understand who he is and where he comes from, because this is not just some guy that came out of nowhere and, oh, here we're doing a game and here, drop money. So I understand that, but I think it's important for you guys to also understand that this guy is not some random guy. Now, Ember Sword is trying to do a hybrid type of game where they're marketing to the regular gamer that doesn't understand blockchain that well, but also marketing to the blockchain industry. And I understand that very well. And I think there's potential in this game, and that's what we're going to do in this interview, kind of break it down so you guys understand what the land sale is, the tokens, and everything else that has to do with the play to earn part of the game. So, Lauren, thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, if you can introduce yourself, a little overview of yourself so people understand who you are.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here with you, Kagi, and of course, to all the people that are watching. A little background about myself. So I started in gaming at a very young age. I was, I think, about 11 years old when I rolled into modding and total conversions, did like a total conversion for the Command & Conquer series. That started out as like a team of 5 people that I put together, then found out 3 other teams were doing the same thing. Did my first merger at age 12, basically while my parents were I was basically upstairs and my parents were thinking that I was doing my homework. Between sort of the ages of 12 and 14, I wrote AI, recreated all the tanks and planes of World War II, and basically ended up creating something called Blitzkrieg, which was, a total conversion of the Command & Conquer series to like a realistic recreation of World War II. That thing kind of got out of hand. I think got downloaded over 3 million times. And from there, I rolled into the games industry. So, give or take age 15, I was working at Neocron. I'm now 36, so that's quite a while ago. The world's very first massively multiplayer online first-person shooter. So that was like literally the first MMO I got to work on. Really thoroughly enjoyed that process. And seeing what MMOs were bringing to the gaming market back then, a very new thing. I mean, really amazing. And then, after that, basically rolled into Silicon Valley, helped co-found another game studio that was doing an MMO, got a reality show going there with what was at the time was the largest gaming magazine in the US. John Romero did on-screen commentary, you name it, the works. Since then, I've been involved in different ways in the games industry, sideways in the film industry, but more initially for quite a while I spent a lot of my time bringing actually technology from gaming to much more serious fields. So I mean literally like training rescue workers and military people with tech from gaming and things like that. Did that for a while, but at the same time was just helping out my friends in the space. And then, at some point, a lot of really great people that I worked with, sometimes for decades, got together, and we got together over the idea of Ember Sword and got really enthusiastic with this notion of that we could truly bring something new to the MMO space again. Because to me, having kind of been in the MMO space 15 years ago, right? And kind of, let's say, just the post World of Warcraft era, and then looking at it now, you can kind of see that MMOs haven't evolved that much since WoW, I would almost say. And there's so much more to be done. So, maybe if I want to kind of bridge that into, why MMOs and blockchain, because, I know the audience that's watching this is definitely super excited and interested specifically in that aspect. So I'm going to share a story. I'm going to steal a story from one of our other founders.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Mark is one of our founders, and he also set up guilds like Nihilum and Insidia, right? They were the top guild in World of Warcraft for almost 2.5 years, won every online and every offline event, represented Blizzard, were sponsored by Michael Dell, you name it. Their videos were watched before YouTube 72 million times, amazing story. And he knows, and I know too, having experienced that same space, that there was just so much value in these games that wasn't getting tapped, right? To give you an idea, there was literally a single blade in World of Warcraft that Mark brokered a trade for, which was totally against the terms of service, of course.
Okay.
And that was sold to someone in Dubai for almost $100,000. And the guy who bought it got banned within a week for illegal trading.
Wow.
Because, it was against the terms of service.
Mm-hmm.
And, despite that, lots of this, black market exists. There's still trading going on, and people are still willing to, spend enormous amount of money, getting something unique. Even though there's this risk of losing it forever and probably 80% odds your account gets banned and you lose everything, right? We know this from over a decade ago that this was happening. So we were obviously really excited when we were seeing just, 2-3 years ago that blockchain was getting technologically advanced enough that it will allow us to pull this off, to actually make things tradable. And I think one of the really important things to understand when it comes to Embersword, and that's kind of something we're delving into, is then how do we believe that we can bring that to the mainstream, right? Because on the other hand, blockchain is an amazing technology, but it's not always as easy to get into, right? So we kind of set out to make Embersword two things, right? A game that has all the benefits of blockchain, but at the same time, all of the accessibility of something that would be free to play and instantaneously accessible in your browser. And I mean, if you look at the game market, right, and I'm putting on an economic hat for today because this is very much, a blockchain community video.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's important for you to do that because I'm learning too. I know you are a knowledgeable individual, and I don't, I didn't want to go in here and be like, let's trash this. None of that. I want to understand where you're coming from, the angles, and I've been doing my research as well. And before you go into that, let me actually, so for the people to understand, kind of like a little of numbers here. I've been researching. So 85% of the U.S. gamers from 13 to 45 are aware of skins, of the skin market, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and you're going to tell me at this point, I know that 40 billion is the estimated size of that market, because I know exactly what research you're reading from right now.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Go ahead. But
you're totally right. You're right on the money. But let me tell you something even more interesting, right? If you look at the whole games industry, like in full, over the past year, the amount of money that the games industry, that the size of that market is about $139 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what part of that is related to free-to-play games, aka games that you can get into without paying money first? It's $98 billion, right? So the vast majority is coming from games that you can get into for free. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you look at all the revenues from games that are so-called premium games, these are any games that you have to buy into before you get to play, that's 24 billion. That's not even, that's roughly a quarter of what is coming from free-to-play games. So when we set out to make Embersword, we knew we wanted to be that kind of game that everyone can get into, right? Also economically, it's important because if you're gonna be unsealing value for the community that is in ownership of things, you ideally want the largest possible audience to be able to earn items, buy items, sell items, and create that thriving economy. So if you think about it, right, what we essentially set out to do is we said, okay, we want this game to be free to get into, right? And then we're going to build on one of the largest, in terms of value, right, markets within the gaming space, which is that 40 billion skins and cosmetics market, right?
Yeah, it's like one third. It's like one third of the whole thing. Yeah.
And it's larger than all the premium games combined, right? Almost twice as large. So we wanted to make sure that we could bring that big audience. And so this is really the premise sort of behind the economy of Embersword, because I've heard, and I fully understand this, because I think when you're like, in sort of the play to earn headspace, there's a lot of games out there that just, let's say put everything on chain. And a lot of people sort of naturally think that what people pay the most for is things that have some kind of utility that make you stronger in the game. But all of the numbers from the games industry actually show that that's not the case.
Hmm.
People are willing to pay more money, spend more on things that make them look unique, make their game experience epic, etc., right? That they can brag about, than they are actually to, willing to pay for things that have a particular utility.
Now, right, that you are right, but that is data. Of course, that is data that has not been explored yet, right? Like the true ownership
Yeah.
of everything, of everything.
Yeah.
And I understand where you guys are coming from, but
Mm-hmm.
I foresee in the next 5, 10 years. Let's just say 10 years because things
Yeah.
don't go that quick, right? But I foresee in the future that everybody, anything you own in the game
Mm-hmm.
is yours. Like you actually own it and you could trade it. If I own this key, it's mine. If I own this phone, it's mine. Everything, every single piece of equipment is yours. Now,
Yeah.
now I do agree that there's a market, and you guys are tapping into that market that is now, right? And I'm sure that it is possible in the future to transition to something different, even doing another game because you guys have the experience. So it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal for me. I think the market right now, you guys are tapping into what it is right now, and I think it's important too. I think it's important because you guys are bridging that gap as well between the people that don't understand ownership, true ownership, and
Yeah.
the people that understand it. It's a happy medium. So I
Yeah.
totally get that. I totally get that.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you actually look at how we're doing it, by the way, what's also important to understand is, if you look at the regular items that are in the game that are, not on chain, right? Those are to us more of kind of a commodity that you can, lose when you go out into the field, right? When you go do PvP interactions, etc., almost like a fuel that you burn up to earn all these awesome NFTs that are the high level content and the high value, right?
Mhm.
So in that sense, it gives us this great gateway to bring people on board. They don't have to spend a dime. They can build up the stuff they need in game to then start, earning these NFTs, which is where the real heavy value is. So that's kind of how we're tackling this, right? So.
Okay.
And this is also, I think, something that a lot of people, when they think, oh, it's a cosmetic, right? They think, oh, it's probably something that you put in a store and you can buy for X or Y, and you just put a nice skin on. But like we're literally going far beyond that, right? You can do just about any activity in the game and be earning these, discovering these. You might be literally fishing in a pond as a high-level fisher, and like by accident find yourself fishing up like an epic pair of boot cosmetics, right?
Yeah. So the loot box is basically the game. In a way,
Exactly,
your time,
exactly.
you're investing your time, and then the percentages of you getting different things between different landscapes within the land. It's actually the loot box is the game. So
Yeah,
and all
exactly.
you have to
You're
invest is the
finding-
time. I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah,
I've been
exactly.
looking at the CS:GO market.
Yeah,
It's insane. It's insane.
yeah.
It's an insane market.
Thousands of dollars for a knife skin, right?
Yeah, and something that you can't really, like, you could trade it, but they could cancel you anytime. Of course, you guys have the power of not necessarily taking it away, but taking obviously blocking an account, which we have seen in Axie, where somebody, they cheat, and they get
Yeah,
blocked. They
something
get blocked.
horrible. Yeah, exactly.
They get blocked for 3 years, and I think that opens up a good market too, because sometimes good items or good skins can get blocked because somebody's cheating, right? But that skin, if you ban it for 3 years, there's a possibility that from here to 3 years, that skin is going to be traded for lower price, even though it's a good skin, and people are betting that skin, when it unlocks from being banned,
Yeah.
so it creates this market of banned items too, or banned skins, because if you ban
Yeah.
it, yeah. So I don't know if you guys are thinking about something like that too.
Well, I mean, realistically, if and when someone would be found cheating, they would probably not own every individual copy of that particular item, because if you look at the cosmetics that we have, the cosmetic collectibles, right? They kind of, depending on the rarity, there's very few that are literally one of one, right? I mean, we're building a game for millions of players. That would be insane rarity. It will occur, of course, right?
Of course.
But even though something legendary, you might have 10 or 20 of them, right? So that player might be unable to play in the game with this stuff for a while. That particular version of the item might not be recognized. I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves. First of all, let's focus on making sure that that kind of stuff just doesn't happen, right? And
Right.
then we'll tackle the case when someone has obviously and provably found some way to cheat the system.
Okay, yeah, yeah, sure. I agree with you. Now, can we talk about land and
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
the percentages of, because you know we got three types of land here. We got the regular plot, we got the settlement, we got the town, we got the city, right? I think a lot of people are asking, right? What is the revenue behind this? What's the percentages? Because before you actually drop $8,000, which might not seem like a lot, right? In the blockchain industry, right? We got millions of dollars, people just dropping money.
Yeah,
It is a lot. And even 400 is a lot. Now, $40, I would do it all day, right? All day. That
yeah,
supports the game. I get a little piece of land. Cool, that's okay. But when we
yeah,
get to the 400, 500, thousands, and 80,000, like, what does this mean
yeah.
for me as a person that is dropping that kind of money, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, since we're doing this, we're going to look ahead a little bit to an article that we'll be publishing a little later this week. But so you get a bit of a scoop here.
okay, okay.
but essentially, what it comes down to is, land is very central, right, in the world of Ember Sword, because all the value that is being generated in the game is being generated on that land. Whether it's collectibles being discovered or being traded at exchanges in the world, things like that. That's on the one hand a super important thing, right? It's sort of the home of the value generation. And on the other hand, it's a place where we want to make sure that the people who own the land will be really incentivized to help build a great community in a variety of ways, right?
Mhm.
So what land is really all about is sort of about creating a shared value model, right? To help the people that are getting on board, that are buying this land, to, on the one hand, earn revenue, kind of get some of that value back that they're investing. And on the other hand, allow them to accelerate that further and entice them to do some great stuff for the game. So if you look at how that works, basically it is as follows, right? Whenever a sort of a value generating event occurs in the world, I'll take a simple example, right? Say a player goes out questing and finds a really cool, let's say, epic cosmetic or a rare cosmetic. And, that player's super happy to find this particular cosmetic, after a quick, glance, realizes that it's worth roughly $100 worth of tokens. Now, the tokens are premium currency, right? Much like any free-to-play game has a premium currency that you would use to buy all these cosmetics, these collectibles, in our case, also the land in future, right?
Hmm.
But, either way, player realizes it's worth $100 worth of tokens, right? So decides to go to the nearest city, hop into the exchange, right? And sell that thing. Now, at that point, like with any exchange, there is a fee. Let's assume for a moment it's a 7% fee, right?
Mhm.
We have a very simple objective, which is sort of at the core to give back half of the revenue being generated in game to those people holding the land. So what happens is half of that fee gets taken. So, let's say $3.50 goes into
A pool.
Brightstar and Ember Sword, into building out a better game, keeping on expanding the world,
Mhm.
etc. Because we're literally building an MMO. I mean, it's not a small job.
No, no, yeah, I agree. Look, I'm all for
And
businesses, people making money. You guys are making a game. That's okay. That's totally okay.
exactly
I'm full for people making money. None of
being
that.
said,
Go for it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, no, that's natural. I mean, it's needed to even make something like this survive, and we can talk more about where that money ends up going in the future and things like governance, etc. Because these are definitely things that we're thinking about, right? We're also not building this game to be something that is here's the game, it's done, have fun. No, I mean, you're building something that's going to be there potentially forever
Mhm.
because of its blockchain nature, right? It has so much value in it. Either way, the other
Half.
$3.50, right? Those are going to the landowners.
Mhm.
Now, the interesting part comes in is then how do you split that, right? So in part, we want to give one part as a sort of a global reward. So that gets spread amongst all landowners of like minted land that currently exist, right? And that's actually spread based on a sort of weight, right? So if you're owning a regular plot, that weight is about 1, right? If you're owning a city plot, the weight is about 125. You can do the math. The point is, city plots get, the relevant amount of extra revenue that they should get for being the cost that they are, right?
Got it.
So that's on both the global distribution, and then you get into the local distribution. And in the local distribution, we take a second portion of that 3.5%, right? And we spread that in the area where the transaction occurred. So that's spread over, let's say, about 20 by 20 plots around where that exchange purchase was made. So not only do all of the plots of that city where it happened benefit from it, but also nearby settlements.
I'm liking you. I'm liking you more now. I'm liking you more. I'm liking Ambersort now. I'm telling you now, because here's the thing. These are the information that that gets you like fired up. You're like, okay, it's not even about how much like can I make, this 1,000%. If I wanted to gamble my life away, then I would go to CoinGecko.com and a bunch of shit coins, right? Like I don't mind, like whatever. Like I'm not looking for that. I'm looking to understand more than anything, and I'm liking this. Go ahead. I just wanted
we're writing everything on Black 13. Anyway, no, but all kidding aside, right? So through this model, what we're basically creating is we're creating this massive incentive for owners of land of any kind to bring value generating activities to their area of the world. So what does that mean? I mean that means for regular land, which could be held by plain old players that that don't maybe have a huge hole in their pocket in terms of the amount of funds that they have, but they really want to interact with the game and have fun, and they could bring their friends over to their land and go adventuring there, and they'll find NFTs, they'll generate value, and some of that value will make their way back to them. When it comes to owning things like settlements and towns and cities, that's about offering the right kind of facilities to entice people to come over, like, getting a guild, major guilds to operate from your town or city, maybe even setting one up yourself. I mean, it's been so exciting, even, in the days leading up to this land sale. You have no idea how many truly awesome guilds I've been speaking to that are going like, yeah, we want to buy a city. We're going to set up this guild. We're going to be streaming. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
And I've talked to this before, on interviews and such. One of the things that's super exciting to me is like when you think about guilds and groups of players, you have these in any game, right? And yet in most of those games, it's a completely voluntary thing. And of course, it is a lot of fun. That's why people spend sometimes more time on running their guild than they do on their full-time job.
Yeah,
right?
Community too. People want to be part of something. That's just kind of human nature. But you're not getting
value back for it, right? And I think it's just like, what you're doing. If you're providing value with your channel, right? Eventually there should be, in a right world, anyone that's creating value should be rewarded for the value that they're creating.
Absolutely.
I believe, that's such an obvious principle. And so here what we're doing is you can do that. You can own a particular area, you could own a town, you can own a city, you can have a guild there. And, if you have the land ownership and you're generating the activity, suddenly that's generating a full-on income for you. And I mean, these aren't, in our expectation, going to be marginal things. There is, huge potential volume in the amount of trades that are occurring. Massive amounts of these fees stacking up, and all these little amounts, all these, $3.50 worth of token add up to a heck of a lot. And that basically means that, the whole way you look at the world is different. I think it's probably going to be the first game, maybe even to some extent on the blockchain, although I will not, I won't for sure say that, but it may well be the first game on the blockchain where land is actually going to be resold in future based on the revenue that it's generating every month.
Absolutely.
Right? Just like in real life, if I own a restaurant and I want to know how much should I sell that for, I go and look at how much money does this restaurant make every month,
traffic,
and I discount that over a bunch of years, and now I know how much that's worth. So not only can I generate revenue for myself by holding this land, but better yet, once I pump up the revenue production by making sure that it's successful, I can even, if I should want to, right? Let's say now I'm done with it for a while. I want to cash in on the revenue I've generated. Then I can cash in on that future value I've created, because the people can see, like, over the past 12 months, this land has generated so much. So I'm happy to buy that for 5x that amount, because I believe it's going to be generating that for 10 more years.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how people buy properties and stuff like that, the future value. Now, let's go into the land real quick. Something very, very important. You got a regular plot. You got settlement plots, you got town. How do you differentiate these plots? Because obviously a city, I believe, is 16 plots. What if I buy 16 regular plots? What is the benefit versus me buying 16 regular plots? Is it gonna be like tagged as a regular plot? Is it?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, of course. But how do?
Yeah. So maybe just easy way to tell them apart. Regular plots are areas of the game that literally you have yet to find out what's going to end up in there. Right? You're not in full control of it. You may not be able to place structures, etc., on it. Right? Could turn out to be a camp, an NPC house, an entrance to a dungeon, etc. Right? So that's one thing, right? So obviously, in terms of the ability to build stuff on it, the other three are very different, right? Secondly, there is this weight, of course, that is attached to them in terms of how much value they generate. So obviously, also when value generating activity happens in the environment, a regular plot is only relatively rewarded based on its intrinsic value, right? Yeah. So the more expensive plots are almost value magnets, if you will.
Now, then, yeah, go ahead. I was going to ask you with the city. Okay, let's say I buy a city. There's 16 plots. Obviously, you can sell it separately. Is there an incentive to have them together? Does it give you the ability to build something bigger for having it together, or each plot can within a city plot, right? A tag as a city plot. Can you build the same thing in the same plots? Like, is there more buildings? Yeah.
There is some incentive, obviously, as to holding them together, and I'm sure we might be, showcasing some of those additional benefits. It's not an incentive that's going to be so major that you're never going to want to separate them.
Right.
One of the obvious incentives is, like, if you are holding all of them, you can much better coordinate what you put down in your city. But if you're working together with 16 people that are actually part of the same guild, nothing's stopping you from parceling it up into the 16 individual plots and just communicating well about who puts what where. Right.
So each plot is individually, in terms of what you could put in terms of buildings. Each plot you can put this whatever building you want. You don't need necessarily, you need 4 plots together to have this building. It's not like that.
Yeah, so far I don't think we have any buildings listed that go beyond the size of a single plot. Okay. There are some truly vast things you could put down in a city, but a single plot is pretty big.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that was very, very important to understand. I think a lot of people were asking me that. And let me ask you, in terms of the skin, going back to the skin, because I have this question, I don't want to miss it. I know we're.
Look, let's just go around and bounce some questions off.
I like doing this, just bouncing back and forth. Now, the skin market, is there gonna be like a crafting? I know CS:GO has something like that. Let's say I have like 10 common skins. That way you build like a burning mechanism or a sync mechanism in which you put 10 skins in some type of let's say protocol, right? Yeah. And then
with fire or something,
you could fuse things together. Is there going to be something like that? Because that makes the market move, right? And
so we haven't decided exactly on all of these mechanics, but that is definitely one we find very interesting. So this is all still part of building the game and working with the community as we build the game. But that's definitely something we're very interested into, experimenting with. And also, you said, is there a crafting component? I already mentioned, like, almost anything you do in the game can yield some of these epic cosmetics. And, the same could be true. Let's say you're you're crafting some level 5 swords that are necessary because, some people need some level 5 swords to go kill some, some monsters and gain some awesome cosmetics, etc., etc., and, go questing, earn some of the awesomest stuff that you can have in the game. But, while you're doing that, you might also sometimes for chance produce maybe a masterpiece and have that be actually a collectible that gets whipped out instead of, the sword that you were expecting. So there's a lot of ways, even within the crafting economy, why that, how that can be pushed forward.
Yeah. That I think that's one of the most interesting things, to be able to kind of obviously not start experimenting and do some crazy stuff that doesn't work, but kind of like expand on the actual market and what you could do with the skins, because that gives you, because at the end of the day, people love the kind of like the gambling type of thing, right? And since it doesn't affect the actual game in terms of utility, right? It doesn't really matter if you're really gambling, like not gambling, but like putting it into something that might give you a fire weapon. You put 4 common items, you burn it, fuse them, and you have a 30% chance of getting a fire weapon.
Yeah, exactly. One of the really cool things is, obviously because we have this separation of sort of the more the more common utility items that are more of a commodity and the in-game gold and such. And on the other hand, we've got all this cosmetic stuff, all these epic pets and mounts and and skins and emotes and things like that. It also means that we have less of a risk of messing things up along the way. Because if you imagine, like if you had all of these things on chain, just imagine the riots when you need to rebalance something. We're building this massive game. We're going to be adding new skills, other stuff, etc. Right? If we had to rebalance that portion just to make the gameplay feel and stay fun, right? With this kind of setup, we can be like, just in a traditional game, you could be like, oh, we found out that like this particular level 5 weapon we've released is totally messing up the whole gameplay. It's not making it fun for anyone, right? And you can rebalance without, victimizing everyone who has that ownership, because that's a relative commodity. It's easy to, swap it around for some other weapons. It's not going to be too hard to come by. It just takes you a bit of time and you're on your way. Whereas on this end, we've got all these, these awesome collectibles.
Yeah, when you do it on the blockchain, you're kind of locked in that sense. I agree. This is I was thinking about this risk versus the reward in making a full blockchain economy. It's very risky if done right, like you said. It's very hard because there's no blueprint for this yet. So to go into and dive deep like this and kind of like risk a beautiful game from what I have seen, I understand that. I understand that point of view. I understand it.
And
so
keep in mind, by the way, Kagi, if you're looking at this like an MMO, a true MMORPG, one that is expected to continue to grow for decades, right? And then saying, we'll get the balance right from day one. Right? I can't tell you everyone that we have involved right now, but we're growing like mad. We're recruiting like crazy. We have some people, you'll see in some of the, press releases, info that's coming out, some people that worked on stuff that most people dream about working on. And they will tell you that they have never gotten it right the first time. They have yet to see in like 100 games to get it right the first time. And these are large, AAA titles, let alone MMOs, right? Which are even bigger. So to some extent, it's also our choice to make sure that we can make this the right experience for the community. Yeah, so that's helping a lot in that regard.
Okay, now we're almost approaching the end. I know you're late over there. I didn't want to do this like this. And
it's okay. Come on.
Okay, so in terms of land and percentages, obviously that's something that over time, it could be tweaked. Now, it could be tweaked. Maybe you guys have to take a little bit more, give a little bit more to the players, depending on how the economy evolves, right? Now, are you gonna give? You talked about governance, thinking about it. Are you gonna give some type of power to the people that own land and with the same type of weight, type of thing? Before you say answer this question, I understand that developers need to have a much bigger power. I understand this. I think we should give the players and the investors a way to vote, but the bigger weight needs to be on the developer, because at the end of the day, the vision started with the developer. So they understand how the game should go better, right? Most of the times.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the times, but it's nice to get that, that community vote in, and also to kind of, sometimes stop something from happening that everyone truly hates, for example. It's like, this is never going to work, because the thing is, I think, Kagi, for me anyway, that the developer needing to be in control, right, is something that has to do with timeline and with how much of the original team is working on it and things like that, right? You see this with most of these types of products and even companies, right, where originally, when there's like the visionaries in charge, everyone believes in the vision that we've put out. And yeah, that means sometimes we're going to push something that is a little different from what you're expecting. But then when you get it, you're like, wow, this is exactly what I wanted, but didn't know was possible, right? As long as you're still doing that kind of development and it's still early on, that's great. But then later on, when things kind of stabilize and, maybe some people move on and it becomes more of a community managed almost product, right? And the core gameplay has been fully crystallized. That's oftentimes where you see people come in that maybe don't quite understand the original vision, that could risk making some decisions that would just ruin the game for the community. And we want to kind of provide, safety boundaries for that. So what we're hoping to do is sort of, create this sort of governance approach where over time, as the game becomes more and more complete and more, I would say, final to a certain extent and well understood in what it does, that we start giving more and more like
letting go a little bit, letting go a little bit. And I think it's one way to counter people coming in, okay, I'm gonna buy 100 lands and just say whatever the hell I want, and we'll make votes here and change the public opinion and whatever, because it's possible. Somebody with millions of dollars can do that, right, in theory. But you can like counter that obviously with proof of play. Right, proof of play. So a lot of games are going with the proof of play with ownership. So if you could have all this land, but if you haven't played 1 hour of the game, hell no, you're not gonna vote.
Exactly. You can't quite decide on it then. And this is kind of getting very much into our philosophy of low friction, right? Making everything easily accessible for the players. So we'll probably be, moving towards a governance model that makes it really easy for people to participate in, right? So, not something that would be super heavyweight where, where you need a lot of technical understanding to get into it. We really, would then want people broadly to have access to governance. And of course, there'll be a weight placed on the value that you've put in the game. Of course, the opinion of, this massive multi-gaming guild that has a whole city of people playing in every nation, that should kind of be counted.
Absolutely.
But, we just want to make it as elegant as we can.
Yeah. Now, last thing, I think we covered pretty good where the vision of this game in terms of the land, in terms of the blockchain. I'm actually more connected now. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm way more connected.
No, I'm glad to hear it, because I fully understand this, right? I mean, these are two disparate spaces, and it takes a couple of like data points to really connect and see, oh, actually, like this could be a gateway to something much larger. And that's what we're trying to do.
Now, in terms of the premium token, is there going to be a cap? Is this something that you guys control? You guys kind of print it out? Because,
so let me be immediately clear without going into the exact details of how we're going to, be deploying that token. Yes, there is an absolute cap. Yes, there's going to be an exact inflation scheme. We're going to be releasing details on that. There's going to be moments where you can get your hands on some of this token. There's going to be a portion of this token dedicated to the ecosystem, to the community, to fueling initiatives.
I like it. I'm open to seeing this, Hell yeah.
No, but that's literally how we believe in doing this, right? So it's all about just because you want that level of predictability, that level of solidity in the value, and you want to use that token to, just like the land, contribute to the value being generated in and around the game world. Because, and this is probably something something that I've grown to believe in, way back 20 years ago. Even in like a game like Neocron, some of the most awesome things that were done in the world were not just things that were designed by the game designers, but were oftentimes social and in a sense designed by the players, right? So, players gathering together, organizing events, doing crazy stuff. I mean, you've seen our Discord. There's game nights right now for all the Solar Woodlings, and, we're playing a Thanatos Cup against each other, in all these different weekly rounds. And you'll see the same thing, hopefully. At least that's what we're trying to incentivize in the game, where, everyone will just be incentivized to bring people to their land, to have epic adventures there, to support a guild on top of their town or city, all these things just to make that on the one hand, make the game so much better for the actual players, and on the other hand, generate value for the people that are putting in the effort.
Absolutely. Now, I think we're close. We're close, because I'm excited. I want to know a little bit more. What about the guild? What about the guilds? Like amount of people in your guild per like the type of land. So you got settlement. It gives you a little guild. Then town, obviously a little bit bigger, and then city plots will give you a bigger guild. Is that gonna work like that? Something like that? Is there like a cap or no cap?
Yeah. So. To be honest, we haven't set it exactly yet, and also we don't expect to give you the hard cap. But it's a good assumption, right? And in fact, it might also be a good assumption that a guild could have multiple locations it's operating from, like several settlements, a few towns, and a city.
Connected, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and like some nice connected landmass, which is their area they're operating from, because you might want to have some of these settlements as like forward operating bases, etc. But yes, there's likely, depending on how much capacity you have as a guild, there's going to be some limitations to the amount of players that would be in the guild. But we really have to kind of test this in the world to see what this works out to in terms of population numbers, right? Because you can imagine, if you have like 2,000 people in a guild that's operating from a city, might be relatively manageable. If you have 2,000 people in a guild that's operating from a sole settlement,
yeah, makes sense.
We have some awesome technology, and it can really deal with a ridiculous amount of players. But it won't be as fun.
I'm happy that it's something that I always notice about this game. Although I had my criticism, whatever. Something I always notice is that you guys have done this with care, right? With care in terms of like information. You don't want to like spark some crazy stuff. So that I appreciate. I appreciate that you guys have taken the care to not go like bullish here. Boom, everything is kind of on the low. not too much.
We try not to release too much information, and sometimes that might be. People might be like, oh, well, I haven't heard any of these things, so that probably means X or Y.
Right.
And yes, sometimes people will assume the best, and sometimes they'll assume the worst. It'll happen, and we just kind of have to count that as we communicate with the community and with the players. That over time, by having that conversation with us, and as new information releases, they'll start realizing, oh, actually, it totally wasn't the worst case. It actually might be a really good case.
Right, and then that also sparks, ideas that you guys might not have seen when people are speculating. Like, oh, what if it's like that? And you guys, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. So it gives you like an open. It's almost like an open door where you can like kind of play around with the pieces. If you release an information, it's set in stone. So I understand that too.
No. I mean, we literally, and I won't name names, but we had one person in our community who's privy to rights of access to much more than other people are right now. Who's actually seen some of what we're doing, right? And was at some point expressing himself in a closed channel, going like, damn, I gave like a whole bunch of criticism. I'm like actually honestly kind of surprised I wasn't kicked out of here, right? and we were like talking, dude, when have you ever seen that here? Like it's, we, as long as it's constructive criticism and thoughts, even, if people trip up a little bit and assume completely the wrong things, it, we're open to it. We'll have the conversation with them. And indeed, sometimes like some ideas pop up and we're, we're not too proud to steal a few good ideas and just put them in the game, because in the end, that's what we have the community for, right? You're building it with and for the community.
Absolutely. Hey, Lauren, this has been a very productive, I think, conversation. I think a lot of people are going to have a clearer mindset coming into this game. I personally, I'll say right now, I am going to look into getting into maybe some settlement or some towns, or for the people that, follow me. That's what I'm probably going to do. I am going to take whatever information I don't have. I'm going to take my bet. I feel comfortable right now with you, with all the information. No,
well,
really,
I'm glad to hear it.
really, because the thing is that it's just when you have a conversation like this, you kind of start sensing who the person is, right? And I think you guys are coming from a very honest position, and not only honest, but also with a lot of experience, right? So I gotta give that respect. I can't come here and be like, the blockchain kid that now knows everything. No, it's not like that. I wanted to learn. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to, absorb information from you, because obviously you have so much information in your head that it's like I'm learning here. I'm learning a different perspective too. So.
But I mean, it's down to the community. Keep us honest. Have this conversation. I mean, we love it. We love to, just go out and talk to the people and clear these kinds of things up when they do occur, so that everyone just has, a clear picture of what it is we're doing. And if at that point you think, awesome, I want to get in on that, then great. We're super happy to have you. Right. And if at some point you're still a little bit like, I'm not sure yet, hang back, relax. No one's certainly, we would never force you to get in. We're just going to continue building like this really awesome experience for everyone out there. And, just hope that over time, everyone kind of connects with it and starts seeing its potential. And hopefully hopping on board and having an amazing time with us.
I think they will. I think a lot of people will kind of like, but it was very important to kind of, come out like this. Maybe some of the things that I said were, not some, a lot of the things were assumptions that I wasn't very clear on. So I'm gonna be honest there. And not only that, it was important for me to do this because it's a lot of questions were coming in from people like, yo, how do you earn? How do you this and that? I was like, okay. These people are going to go in blindly, and this is not okay. This is not okay. Not because of you guys. Not because of you guys. Because that's the mentality right now in crypto, and I don't want that mentality. If I had that mentality, I would cover every single game in crypto. As you can see in my channel, I'm very, very, very... I literally turn down promotion videos like 4 or 5 every single day because I'm not going to go into any crap. I need to... and I want people to learn like me. I'm learning. We're learning this process.
No, but this is exactly what, and one of the reasons why we started chatting, and we were indeed already chatting long before you made even like your last video about this, right? And it's been clear from day one, I think, that like you were so, genuinely enthusiastic about things, but at the same time, you were getting educated, you were starting to understand things. You have that drive to want to get what's going on, and that's great. So that's exactly what we want. We want to grow that understanding. Nobody, at least certainly not on our team, nobody wants people jumping in completely blank, uneducated, not knowing what it is we're doing, because the more you know about why we're building it this way and what to expect, the more likely you're also the right person to jump in and get it and maximize both your value and the value for the community, which, I think in the end, that should be the goal, right?
Absolutely. And I think what a lot of companies are not understanding here is that when you do this kind of things, like give a little bit of ownership to the players like this, this is what you given to the people. This is what you would spend in literally promoting the game. Once you give to people this kind of like ownership, what you're really doing is you have partners now, partners that you don't even have to pay them. You don't have to pay them because they believe in the vision, they believe in the game, they own part of the game. So they're gonna talk about it like if there were, like if it was their game. If somebody talks bad, and I don't want to bring like other games, but right now actually it's one of those games that I'm really feel strong about. When somebody talks about it, I'll defend my game. I'll defend my game like 100%. And with this game as well, like when I buy my town, my settlement, I'm like, yo, you talk crap, you out. You know, like that's just
don't mess with my land.
That's just kind of how I roll. You know.
That's the great thing. And if you think about this from an MMO mindset, you know, you've got these MMOs that are hiring, you know, if they're really large, hundreds, if not thousands of game masters. I've been there. I've led a team of 35 GMs, right, in an MMO, right?
That's
and
crazy.
These were people that are on the payroll. And you know, they're never going to be as enthusiastic as the genuine players you've got in your game that themselves are invested. And then if you give them that model that also they're getting the value back from it, right? Yeah, it's like you have, you know, a 1,000 game masters that are being paid for by your game's economy.
Yeah, and generated by themselves because they have an incentive to put the game out there and say, hey, this game is amazing, this, blah, 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 build value in their land as well. So there's an incentive to keep playing the game. So yeah, hell yeah, man. I'm excited.
Awesome.
Thank you,
great
Lauren.
to talk to you. Let's do this again sometime in you know the not too far future.
For sure.
This was really cool. So,
absolutely. You know, I'm open to some gameplay, hook it up. You know, like so we can play a little.
yeah. We're really like, you know, again, we're really heads down right now with the many things that, you know, because frankly, you know, and you will see this over the upcoming weeks, like, you know, many things have happened and have been accomplished even over the past few months, you know, that no one has even heard about yet. And those things are probably gonna, you know, start coming out, and you know, there's so much we're busy with right now. But yeah, it's, you know, the excitement in the team is really at all-time high. It's gonna be an amazing.
And before we leave, for the people that don't know, if maybe you watched this far, Ember Sword is going to be available in like every single platform because it's going to be a browser-based game, which is you're going to be able to connect, boom, and you can go from your phone to your computer to your whatever, and you're going to be there 100% right away. You don't have to download anything, and on top of that, that means that whatever update, whatever bugs, whatever fix they need to do, it's right away. It's uploaded into the basically the game, so without you having to do anything. So it's very important. That's
in your case, and in the case of many people, that even if you have just friends, or if you're a streamer, even better, you know, you can even go so far as to just get a link, you know, and people can click it and they can join you in the game, you know, potentially right where you are, which is, you know, amazing, right? I mean,
are we paying some tokens for that, like to hop? some gold?
It depends on whether or not they're new players, and there's some other things involved. Not everyone can do it. But, you know, just because of this unique nature of being able to run straight up in the browser in a few seconds, you can imagine that, you know, even while you're like live on stream, if you paste that link, someone can be spectating you, not in a video stream, but actually in the game. And we can even experiment with stuff like that. And, you know, now I'm starting to kind of, you know, spoiler stuff that we've talked about in Team before, but like literally you could be fighting in an arena, you know, in one of our cool, like sort of PvE mechanics. And the fans that are watching you from the stands might actually start showing up in the arena stands and might be able to vote on like which power up to throw at you next in between things, right? So kind of a, you know, almost Hunger Games benefactor kind of thing, where the more fans you have watching you in the arena, the higher you can get.
I like it. Hey, man, I'm excited.
All right. Anyway,
thank you
I
much.
have said way too much.
Yeah, thank you for your time, man. You're such a nice guy, for real. I really enjoyed this. Like you said, well, let's do it again. Maybe down the future, maybe we can do, you know, and do this again and have some fun with the information and, you know, bouncing ideas back and forth. For real, I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.
Bye bye.
Great.